Hi, hello everybody, and welcome to the Harbor Community Meeting. This is the European, America's friendly time zone. It's the 22nd of April, and as always, is a recorded meeting, so please adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. So a few folks today, so we have myself, Chris, Jonas, Tianon, John, and Gary. Welcome all. I want to give you a couple of quick updates, and we have a new location for our Harbor Community Meetings agenda. It's actually documented also in our GitHub. So if you go to GitHub, go Harbor Community, and you look at the meeting schedule, it basically talks about where you can find our agenda. And then it's also in our website as well. It's just a little bit more friendly to have this versus doing PowerPoint presentations. So feel free if you want to add something to the agenda for a future presentation, add it. We keep the same agenda as the one with the earlier meeting that happens at 8 a.m. Pacific. Sorry, at 6 a.m. Pacific. That basically is more friendly to European and Asia. I want to talk a little bit about Harbor 2.0. We have a release candidate. So if you're interested in checking out OCI compliance, SSL certificates, Slack integration for webhooks, the ability to individually target which webhook you want to get notification on versus all. All of those are features of 2.0. They are in the release candidate, and we're probably about maybe a week away from release. So, and when I say release, I don't mean release to everybody. I'm talking about as a Harbor, we're ready to have all our binaries ready. And then we're going to take the next 2 weeks after that to go through documentation, finish up our blog post, and do all the necessary things to basically get the release tied up. So the code should be done in about a week and tied up, but then we'll take a few more weeks to finish up the activities around field enablement and customer enablement. But for all intents and purposes, check it out, get the build, put it through a spin, and then if you have any feedback or suggestions, come back to us. We have a few links here around 2.1 and going through the 2.1 feature set. There's pull requests here. We encourage you guys to go provide feedback. We've walked through P2P last week, so I'm not going to do it again. We've talked about proxy cache maybe the meeting before even that. So the proposals are here. Go provide, if a feature is important to you, at least tell us that. If you have feedback in how we plan to implement this, also give us feedback. And then same thing for P2P. And if you're interested in helping us deliver any of these features, tell us that too. Okay. The Harbor Core Operator that we're working on, the version 0.5 is available now, and we're progressing well towards a vision of actually making this a stable release at some point in the future. We don't have a date for that, but it's not years out, it's a few months out. The important thing there is that this is mainly community driven, and so as the community has different needs in terms of what to do around lifecycle management, that this is basically a work in progress, right? So as more folks get involved into the project, they bring their own needs and their own requirements, and this is evolving over time. So it started from OVH as the company that was the main contributor, and now that we have a lot more contributors that are trying this out. There's an installation guide. Give it a try. It's linked here from the documents. So highly encouraged to give this a shot. And I want to mention one thing that Daniel, one of our maintainers, mentioned. He's from Aqua Security. He asked a very good question on the morning call, asking, "Hey, so what's going to happen? Are you going to integrate with the Operator Hub for lifecycle management of the operator itself?" The answer is that's a very good question. We haven't thought of that, and we post it to the folks working on the operator so they can actually figure it out. What are the benefits and drawbacks of that? And that question came up from the fact that there is a Helm chart now for the operator to make it easier for consuming the operator. So the idea was, hey, should you also post it to the operator hub? So something for us to think about. The Harbor cluster operator, which is the operator that's basically a superset of the core operator that basically will enable Postgres and Redis and deploy some of the ancillary components of Harbor. The coding has started after doing some planning. So you can find some of the design documents here. So if you're interested in learning more. And then we'll have a quick update here on some of the replication adapters are happening in Harbor. So we're working on a verification testing framework so that it makes it easier for us to validate all these adapters from release A to release B to release C. And the different folks are kind of working on that is outlined here on the document. And we also have a couple more adapters that are on the way, kind of identifying who's going to help us with some of the CI around this. And that's kind of the last of the items that we had here. The main thing is, progressing well on 2.0. We're already planning 2.1, and actually we're going to have a maintainers meeting next week, I believe, to kind of finalize the deliverables for this release. And if you guys haven't noticed, our maintainers team right now has 6 companies involved. So all of those folks are going to come in and kind of agree on the modus operandi for the next release of Harbor and the kind of the themes that we want to influence for this release. So good things. In conjunction with Harbor 2.0, there's also some exciting things happening in the community. So as you guys are well aware, Harbor is up for graduation. We kind of pretty much are at the 90% part of finishing up our graduation review with SIG Security, which is the last SIG that's reviewing Harbor. We had a meeting both last night and today. Overall, good feedback, good progress, and right now they're writing down their assessment. So we are in good hands to potentially put Harbor up for a vote. I will come to every single person that's used Harbor, that's been on these meetings, and ask you guys, when the TOC basically asks for the public feedback time, so public can either endorse or say something against Harbor in their bid for graduation, I'm going to ask for everyone for their support. So that means getting your GitHub account, going up to the PR and voicing your support for Harbor. Hopefully support, right? Nobody says anything bad. I know where you live. Just kidding. All right. I wanted to kind of bring up another item after this. I want to get some feedback in terms of how these meetings are going. Is this useful for you? Do you want to see something different? Is there a different structure that we can be using that would be more valuable to you? I want to open it up. I really want to learn if there's a better way for us to do this.
Would it be more useful if we did demos and things like that during this meeting as well of new features, so you could see what's coming in the next release and things like that?
I mean, that's my main use case for attending these meetings, is just to learn about what's coming up in Harbor and keep kind of my finger on the pulse of like when we need to upgrade or when we need to plan our next upgrade.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything else they want to see?
Hey, this is Tianan. I think these meetings are awesome. I really appreciate you guys putting them together and giving us basically a synopsis of what the heck has happened in Harborland in the last 2 weeks. I mean, I think it's a good format, and I think you cover the bases really well. Demos would be fun, but having given demos and prepared for demos, I know that that's sometimes too much to ask. So I'm not going to ask for demos, but
I'm actually going to do one thing. I'm going to be like Kelsey Hightower right now, and I'm going to do a demo on the fly on an environment that have never opened in a long time. But I'm going to see if I can do this. But let's just hope as the first part is that the folks kept the same password And they have. Okay, this is Harbor 2. This should be Harbor 2.0.
I love that dark mode.
Yeah, so this is Harbor 2.0. This is probably a very, very recent build. It was built today. All right, so let's take a look at some things, can we? So interrogation services. Two built-in interrogation services, 3V and Clair. So now you have 3V out of the box. It's installed whether you use Docker Compose or the Helm chart. So the 3V will be the default for new projects, but for upgraded projects, you get to have whatever you had before. So if you had no scanner enabled, no scanner will be enabled. If you had Clair in the past, Clair will maintain. But we really, really urge people to start using 3V. Over time, we're going to phase out Clair, and you're going to see it disappear, okay? And obviously some of the other settings remain the same. You get to see a new option in garbage collection called delete untagged artifacts. When you do garbage collection, if there's an artifact that's not tagged, and this is important, I'm going to show you guys in a second, you can delete it. In the past, we always deleted untagged artifacts, but that was because untagged artifacts never showed up in Harbor. Now, untagged artifacts do show up. So if I go to a project now, and I look at, this guy seems to have a couple of repositories. So let's look at the repos. So if I look at this, now I have this artifact, which is identified by SHA. And look at this, it has multiple, well, actually it only has one architecture, and it has one tag. But I could right click on this and I can say remove tag. And I'm not going to do it because someone may be using it. So now that artifact, when I remove it, it won't be orphaned because it will still show up in Harbor, and you can tag it over and over again. So I can actually come over here and add a second tag, and I'm going to call it Chris D. And now I added a second tag for this. So now you have two tags. You never could do that with Harbor before. And now I can go and say, hey, I don't need Chris D anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Oh my God, did it delete both tags? Shit. Okay, I didn't even check what the option was. I just said, okay. Okay, someone's test case is gonna break. So reading is very important. I didn't read what the warning was, so I just said go ahead and do it.
You'll have to watch the recording and you can get the tag back.
Yeah. Jonas, do you remember what the tag was?
Nope, sorry.
Shit. All right, so I deleted your tag. So I'm going to add this here so someone can actually come in. Hopefully they'll see that I deleted your tag. Maybe I should rename it. I deleted your tag and my name is Jonas. So if you have multi-architecture tags, each bundle will identify that as well. Let me see if they actually have any repos with multi-architectures here. Okay, this one has 3, maybe has some multi-architecture stuff. Okay, this one has no artifacts. You have seen that from earlier. This is also one single one only. Okay, so there's nothing in here, but that's basically one thing that you can do, right? So now because we're OCI compliant, you have a thing called an OCI index, and the OCI index becomes a first-class citizen in Harbor, and under that OCI index, you can have multiple architecture images, or if you have a CNAP bundle, you could have a collection of images, for example. So now you can enforce policy and all the other things based on the bundle. Helm charts, slowly we're going to start phasing them away because Helm charts are OCI compliant, so we don't want to use the chart museums anymore. It's also something that's antiquated, so over time we want to remove it. Members, that doesn't change much. Same thing. One of the things we added not too long ago was basically in 1.10, I believe, we added the support for groups in OIDC. So before you only could do LDAP groups, now you can do OIDC groups. So that's great benefit. Labels, same stuff. Scanners, we kind of walk through that. Let's talk a little bit about policy. Both tag retention and tag immutability have been updated to support the new capabilities around OCI and what it means to be able to retain an image, right? So you're going to see some changes here. So untagged artifacts also become a key part of this here. and whether you want to include them or exclude them to tag retentions. And tag immutability, also same thing. We've updated them to be compatible with our OCI plan. Robot accounts. One of the things that came up today is that today you can only have robot accounts that to push and pull. That's great, but a lot of our scanners today, like for example, if you're Sneak or Aqua or Ankle, they want to pull all the images out of Harbor. If they're using Harbor not through the pluggable scanner framework, without actually being succumbed to the policy that says, well, don't pull an image that has vulnerabilities. So how do you do that? So we're basically looking into capability for 2.1 about creating an overarching account, almost like a robot account, with pull-only credentials that can be enabled at the pluggable scanner level to enable them a robot-like experience, but across all projects. That's something that we're looking at for 2.1. Webhooks, one of the areas that we improved here is that you have an option to decide which webhooks you want to enable. So if you only want artifact push, you can uncheck everything else and you only get artifact push. The second one is that you are going to have Slack integration. So if you're interested in getting your notifications in Slack, you can give us your endpoint URL and we want us to basically verify a remote certificate. You can do that as well. Give it a name and add it into Harbor. And then from config, not much has changed here. Like, you know, a couple of releases ago, we added the whitelist, so that's nothing new here. But you're gonna see some new things around replication. So if I actually want to add a new endpoint for replication here, you're gonna notice that the providers has exploded. Alibaba, AWS, Azure, Docker Hub, Docker Registry, that's the Docker distribution, GitLab, Google GCR, Harbor, Helm Hub, Huawei, JFrog Artifactory, Quay. So we are adding more and more. We want Harbor to be the good ecosystem citizen, and if you want to push and pull into Harbor for pretty much anything else out there, you can do that. That's it. And if you don't like the dark mode, you click on light and you go back to traditional Harbor.
So bright.
Yeah. So there you go. You got a quick demo of 2.0. With,
I want to point out, because I'm really excited. This is Tiana, and I'm really excited about the multi-architecture functionality available here. But I wanted to point out that one thing that I was extra excited about is that replications also support that. So,
That's right.
For example, you can replicate images from Docker Hub into your local Harbor instance, and they keep whatever architecture list they had on Docker Hub as well.
That's right.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, absolutely. We might charge you for it, but do ask.
Okay, so on the 2.0 release candidate, I noticed there's an offline installer option, but there's not the online installer bundle. Was that intentional or was that an oversight?
Yeah, so the offline installer is a Docker Compose, and that's what we build right away. It usually takes us a few days to build the Helm charts.
Right. On the previous releases, there was also an online installer option that doesn't include all of the saved images.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't create that yet. Jonas, can you take a quick note and ask the team why they didn't? Maybe they're working on it. I don't know why they didn't produce it.
For which specific thing?
For Harbor 2.0, the RC, the online installer is not there.
Oh, okay. I'll make a note.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I haven't looked at the release bundle, but yeah, that's a good point, Tiana. We can take a look at why.
And my other question was around the OCI support. So in the distribution spec of the OCI, they've started working on some real conformance tests that can be run against a registry. Have you played with those at all, or has anyone in the Harbor team played with those and hooked them up to Harbor and see where Harbor stands today?
We have not, but we've talked about this before, and maybe this is a good conversation for us to have one more time. I don't have any data on you. I actually looked at some conformance tests both for OCI as well as for Ingress for Contour. So this is good to actually bring it up and see if someone has bandwidth to go through this.
Yeah, and I think they're looking for registry vendors like Harbor to submit the results of their conformance testing. So that might be.
Can you send me an email? Can you send me an email if you have a link of where they're expecting these results to be submitted? Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll send you an email with details about it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Alex is who's probably asleep right now is looking into OCI. He may be aware of it, but just in case, I'll ask him. I know they've talked about conformance in the past, but it's been a while, so it's definitely something that it's not top of mind. So I'll bubble it up again.
Awesome. And I was curious on the replication providers. What makes each of those replication providers different enough to warrant having their own entry? Like, as far as I understand, most of them have a standard registry interface, and that's kind of the point, right? So why are they all listed separately? Like, what makes Docker Hub inherently any different than replicating from a Harbor instance?
Yeah, so part of it, I think, is vanity. And since each of those, like for example, we had to get Alibaba to come in and test it. So it's not just supporting it, right? There's also the testing component of it, and that's one of the things I mentioned earlier. And we had to get Huawei to test it. Once they do that, they actually want their name to be in there. And it just boils down to vanity. Is the engine behind it that supports is almost identical for most of them? Yes. But because you have to test independently for every one of them, both for the bidirectional replication, either in or out, I mean, it's really a sync in some ways. Then and the fact that some of these vendors are doing work, they want to see their name in there, and that's why it's in there.
Right. Okay. That's fair.
Otherwise, we would have had to abstract it into a couple of things, right? For example, we've had to, here, let me share my screen because not all of them are equal. So let me go back. So not all of them are equal. So let me go to the registries. So I believe Quay is the first one that's different, right? I think Quay, no, it's Artifactory. No. One of these accepts a JSON. There it is. Okay, Google GCR. So from the moment that you have at least one or two that are not the same as others, and you have to call it out specifically, then everybody wants their own name in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would say Google GCR, every other registry. But then, who do you support? Like different versions of Harbor might support different ones. Like Quay and Artifactory are new. So it makes sense for us to, hey, let's give everybody their logo and their stuff in there. Yeah. And if you look at our decks as well, we actually call it out independently for each one of them. Like we have our big Harbor architecture document. So if I actually search for Harbor architecture wiki, hopefully this search works well. I think this is it. Yeah, so we start calling them all out here. Obviously, this hasn't been updated for 2.0, but everybody gets their own slot here on the right.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Anything else?
Question for you about the new functionality for untagged images and the garbage collection there. So it was really cool to see that you can add tags and remove tags. I'm assuming once all of the tags are removed, or even if they're not all removed, there's a different option to explicitly delete an image. And is that tracked separately so that it is garbage collected if you don't use the checkbox of garbage collect untagged images?
Yeah, so essentially, if the layers are basically all gone, then obviously, like if there's no reference layers to you and you don't have a tag, then the image will be gone anyway. And the untagged, and we're gonna document this fairly well in our docs in terms of where does untag come into play for garbage collection. Like when do you want, like, and the reason why I bring it up is because if you upgrade from version 1 to 10 of Harbor into 2.0 and you had images that are not used, they might show up as untagged. Now, did you want to just see them like it used to be before or not, right? your experience with Harbor before was that once an image didn't have a tag, it would be eligible for GC. That's why untagged is an option there, because you may want to enforce that experience. Like, hey, if an image doesn't have a tag, go ahead and kill it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
All right, everybody. Well, we're out of time. Thank you for the conversation. It was engaging. But yeah, like I'm totally okay every time we have a meeting here to either do a quick demo as well. We can, you can do it. Maybe I won't delete a tag that was there next time. I'll be a little bit more careful, but we'll do that, and whatever is valuable to you, feel free to add items to the agenda. I really encourage you. Like I want to start seeing you guys add items and say, hey, I would like to know about X or Y. It could also give us some time to prepare. All right, everybody. Well, have a good day. Thank you all for attending. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.